Hello everyone and welcome to another video here on the Cycling Day Extra channel, or if you're listening on the podcast. What we're discussing today is the World Championships in Zurich, and here with me is Patrick Blake of How Do Cycling, and one third of the Echelon Cycling Podcast. And I mean, Patrick, the World Championships, a great event, a great one-day race. Well, there's a whole host of things, but we're only focusing on the road race.
It's already been a pretty interesting week of racing. The TTs have been the only events at the moment to this time of recording. The road races will be beginning, well, I'm not sure, it might be tomorrow with some of the junior races and whatnot. But yes, the men's elite road race. It's got lots of prestige about it, lots of people talking about a double-double with Remco doing the double at both the Olympics and the World Champs, but also the talk of Van der Poel losing weight, especially for this race. The talk of, obviously, Pogacar and just all the other kind of things which are going on with this race. It looks like it's going to be a real brutal event. Lots of climbing. Always love a bit of like a circuit race, especially on such a big stage like the World Champs. It's always an interesting watch, and I can't wait to see how it's going to pan out.
You said double-double with Remco being the first man to doing the double in each one. Matthew Van der Poel, like you said as well, but Pogacar is the Triple Crown as well. Hasn't been achieved since 1987. And just watch, Mark Hirschi wins it. All of these achievements just destroyed by one rampant Mark Hirschi, but more about that later. What does the route look like for the riders in this year's World Championships?
Well, this year's route goes from Winterthur to Zurich. It's 273.9 kilometers of official racing and 4.5 kilometers of neutral section. So we're getting up towards 280 kilometers. We have 4,470 meters of elevation. For context, I think the GP of Montreal had about 3,800 to 3,900, and quite a lot of those Tour of Luxembourg stages had somewhere around 4,000 meters. So just using that as a bit of a yardstick for how you think the race might be going. The first 86 kilometers taken the Winterthur loop, which is, it's got some lump and bumps in there. It's more for the break formation phase. And that 86 kilometers takes us out. And then towards Zurich, that kind of lap circuit begins at 86 kilometers into the race, and we do 7 laps of that. We go up this climb, which is 6.2%. It goes up out of Zurich over to Zummikon, down into Kursnacht, over to Zollikon, and back into Zurich. And yes, like I said, we do that 7 times. And the accumulated climbing throughout the race will be the main deciding factor. I'm not sure how much I'm expecting some long-range crazy attacks to be taking place, because at the end of the day, I think although that Viticon climb being 2 kilometers at 6%, yes, it's going to start to take its toll, but part of me thinks that maybe 6%, there's definitely going to be people still in the big ring. There's going to be still the aero advantage of sitting in the wheels, and I'm interested to see just who decides to animate the race and at what point, because I reckon it'll come down to the last couple of laps probably. I reckon before then it'll just be a slow attrition. But how do you see the race going, Scott?
Remco, Mathieu van der Poel, Tadej Pogacar. I see maybe Tadej Pogacar coming with a big hit, and the 2 others just hanging on with maybe a Mark Hirschi as well. We'll go through each of them, I think, as well. But Patrick, we might as well start with... Who do you want to start with?
I think we should start with Tadej.
Oh, disrespecting the defending champion. Oh, okay. What hasn't Tadej Pogacar done this year?
Well, he didn't win the GP of Quebec. He came 7th there, so he's washed, is what we can determine from this. That is an absolute joke, in case people didn't get it. But I think Poggy is the favourite according to the bookies. I had a look earlier. It's Poggy, Remco, Van der Poel, then Hirschi. That's kind of your top 4. And then you start to get into your more outside favourites. We'll talk about them in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, I think Poggy just has to be the favourite for this race. It's pretty much like GP of Montreal. So anybody who's in that race won't stand a chance against him, which is ultimately why we're talking about, the main competition being Remco and Van der Poel, because neither of those guys were at the Canadian races. So we've got no ability to equate how they're going to be going up against Pogacar. All we know is that Poggy's going incredibly well. He's got a really strong team around him. He'll have support deep into the race, I expect. because Roglic is also going to be there. He's got that sort of last man to really set the pace hard before he can attack, kind of what he always relies on Micah to do. So I think Poggy's in a really good position, but I think that it's going to not be the walk in the park that Monreal was. I think it's going to be a lot harder to get rid of Remco and Van der Poel. However much I kind of want to talk about Remco, I think that the big red herring, well, not red herring, but the big thing that Poggy should be worried about is Van der Poel hanging on. What do you reckon to that? I think Poggy can hang on to Remco, but I think that if Van der Poel survives, I think Van der Poel can beat him in a sprint.
I don't disagree with that. It seems like the only person who can really beat Mathieu Van der Poel in a sprint is Mads Pedersen, who beat him in the Tour of Luxembourg. But yeah, can he hang on? It's quite a long climb-ish, but if he has... Well, these guys are super lean anyway, so the fact that he's become even leaner is quite crazy. In our previous discussion as well, of course, we talked about Tadej Pogacar potentially being, well, is he the favorite? Yes, he is. As you said, people were saying that we should not discount Roglic being a thorn in his shoe or in his foot. Like, it doesn't mean that Roglic is going to be his teammate. It's this weird concept that riders are teammates one time a year, and all the other times they're arch rivals. So, but yeah, okay, I agree. Mathieu Van der Poel, probably the biggest threat. Remco Evenepoel, also a big threat. It's a hard one.
It is hard because all of these guys have, especially Remco, his style of winning is going solo. You know, a lot of people see that, like Olympics, brilliant example of that. And he won't be able to do that. There's no way, but I think that Remco is that much better than like Poggy at climbing to get rid of him. So for me, I think that we're not going to see a solo victory from Remco. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if we'll see a solo victor at all, because I think that Remco and Poggy, I don't see one of them dropping the other, is how I see it.
I mean, we are getting the Liège-Bastogne-Liège head-to-head how we wanted last year, but it's come this year. Yeah, I see what you mean. I think the climb isn't long enough or tough enough for one of them to get rid of the other one, potentially. Do you think there's a chance of an outsider? I know we're going all over the place here. Normally we're a bit more structured, but do you think there is a risk that these three guys are just going to look at each other and then the wind disappears up the road and enter Mark Hirschi, for example, who's been on an absolutely insane run this year? He won 5 races in a row at one point. In a row, like not win one, then a gap, and then in a row. Okay, not day to day in a row, but you know what I mean.
I think it's very possible that it could be a little bit of too much looking around if they don't get rid of each other, but none of them are willing to really pull to the line. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd say that Remco and Poggy are fairly equally matched in a sprinting ability. And, you know, if they get away, but Van der Poel's behind, they're going to need to work together. And maybe they would do, but yeah, there's a possibility where if Van der Poel's also there, nobody's going to want to work other than maybe Van der Poel. And if they all sit up and you get the perfectly timed counter-attack of Mark Hirschi or any other outsiders who might launch a bit of a surprise, yes, there's absolutely a possibility that all these big favourites could stare themselves into the abyss and end up coming up second best. But yeah, going back to Hirschi, he's had an incredible run of form. Obviously, this isn't an Italian .pro or 1.1 race. This is the World Championships. But Hirschi home roads, I think that would definitely give him a bit of a boost. You know, Tour of Luxembourg, you could say he wasn't looking the best. But you could also say that he's done like a month of pretty continuous hard racing, and it's just that he was just getting tired. And now, once he has like a week off, getting that full-on taper going into a World Champs, he could be a really, really strong favourite going in. So he's certainly not one to be looking over. I think if anybody is to challenge those big three, it's going to be Hirschi.
Yeah, okay, Tadej Pogacar, we spoke a lot about that last time. Check that video out if you haven't already. But yeah, Remco Evenepoel, what do you think of him? Obviously, Tour of Britain, you happened to see him as well. Wasn't the best Tour of Britain, but then bounces back. Well, bounces back. I think he was just enjoying himself, having a paid vacation around Britain. But yeah, at the time trial, absolutely obliterating the field. Had a bit of a chaotic start. I don't know if you saw that. Accidentally dropped his chain on the start, which was a bit of a panic moment. But he still won it. Second time in a row now. And yeah, so the legs are there, but it's just, how does he win it? Was that Pogacar in 2022? There wasn't a Pogacar at the Olympics, and there was a Wout van Aert to block the counter by Mathieu van der Poel. So that is two crucial components to this, and the climb is a lot longer.
And he's also arguably got the strongest team in the race. With
You think?
Yeah, well, we talked about in the last discussion. I feel like it is Belgium or...
Yeah, the Belgian team. I like the Belgian team.
But there are other teams which are strong, but they kind of lack the structure required, if that makes sense. They lack that
UK.
kind of hierarchy. Yeah. Remco with Van Hills, Benoit, Vellens, Quentin Hermans, De Plus. Like, you look around the whole team, it's just got absolute hitters everywhere. I just fear that Remco, his kind of cookie-cutter formula of I'm going to solo away to victory now, isn't going to be easy to deploy when you've got Pogacar on your wheel. There's no way that Remco's going to be able to drop him in my eyes. And then if that's the case, then it's just going to be a head-to-head sprint amongst the two of them, let's say. And with that, it's just a complete flip of a coin in my eyes. I think they are very equally matched, and it just depends who's conserve the most energy throughout the race. Remco's absolutely, him and Pogacar, they just have to be the favourites. Van der Poel's got a little bit too much uncertainty about him, you could say, because, this is very akin to a Liège, and he's come top 10 in there before, but you'd say that Poggy and Remco are more suited to this style of race with a repeated climbs than Van der Poel is.
Yeah, I completely agree. 7 circuits is quite a daunting prospect. It's 400 meters each circuit. Yeah, on the team front, I do think the UK has a really good team, or GB, with Adam Yates, Simon Yates, and Stephen Williams, who won the Tour of Britain, but they don't have that big hitter compared to some of these other teams. But yeah, okay, we've looked at Pogacar. We know Pogacar, what he's going to do. He's basically, you said it, Montreal, that's the blueprint. And for Remco Evenepoel, kind of the blueprint, the Olympics, he's hoping, but it's going to be a hard one. Mathieu van der Poel, you said, is just going to hang on for dear life in a way, and then maybe he comes with a surprise punch on the final climb towards the top if everyone's looking at each other. Who knows? But yeah, he might be winning from a small group. Mark Hirschi, we've just spoken about as well. Is there anyone else that you're kind of filling into this Joker role, dark horse, second tier favorites? I mean, Spain, Italy.
Spain's one of those teams which, like I said, lacks a bit of structure, and they've got a team full of absolute fantastic riders: Pello Bilbao, Carlos Rodriguez, Juan Ayuso, Mikel Landa, Enrique Mas, Alex Arambarou, Roger Adria, and Pablo Castillo. Obviously, he was the revelation of the Vuelta with 2 stage wins. Roger Adria's just won the Grand Prix de Wallonie. Who is working in this team for who? Because it just looks like a team full of, it's just like a 8-man team of people fighting for their own individual glory. I just don't see how it would work. In theory, I'd say Bilbao, based upon the fact that he was good in the Canadian races, second in Montreal. Yeah, I'd say that he's the best for them. Italy, I don't really know who they'd be going for. They've got a team full of really good riders as well. Maybe they might go with Ulissi, I guess. Baggioli can sometimes pull it out the bag. Ciccone's had a lot of illness or crashes or whatever this year. Tiberi, the Italian sniper that has just won the Tour of Luxembourg, much to people's dismay. I'd say it'd be one of those guys, to be honest with you, but could you see France doing something? They do have Alaphilippe here, they do have Madouas here, they've got Gaudu, who did very well in Tour of Luxembourg as well. I'd say that they've got a good team.
2-time world champion, Romain Bardet, former silver medalist. Yeah, it's not a bad team on paper. But yeah, Julien Philippe losing out just in the sprint to Mark Hirschi in San Sebastian. I mean, could it be Lulu who takes a 3rd title from nowhere and goes to the pro continental scene as world champion?
He could do. The thing is, when he won back in Flanders, I think that was a little bit of an unexpected victory. France really threw the kitchen sink at it, but Alaphilippe's form before it wasn't spectacular. So I don't think Alaphilippe can be counted out. I think the bookies have him as like a 6th favourite, 5th or 6th favourite.
Isn't the climb too long for him?
He's in a tricky scenario where there's likely to be a second group, and then there's just going to be like 8 to 10 people in there, a bit like Montreal, where they all look at each other, and there's going to be no cooperation. They're all going to lose time to inevitably Remco or Poggy or whoever's up the road, and it's just going to be a minor sprint for 3rd place, so long as nobody else has held on to Remco and Poggy, and people will get a little bit cagey to try and get that 3rd place. Alaphilippe could do it, for sure. He's probably France's best hope, I would say. ultimately. But what about your Danes?
I was going to talk about your Yorkshiremen with Tom Pidcock, the Prince of Yorkshire, being here. But we can skip him. It's fine. We can come back. But Denmark, Mathias Skjelmose Jensen, who did abandon the Tour of Luxembourg, but they've said it isn't going to hamper his Worlds preparation. Did just come fifth in the Vuelta a España and win the white jersey. Mads Pedersen, as we said earlier, won a stage in the Tour of Luxembourg. Not sure why he's here. Mikael Valgren, Magnus Kort Nielsen, Mikkel Honoré, Frederik Vandal, Jakob Fuglsang, Andreas Kron. Andreas Kron was also quite good in Tour of Luxembourg. Yeah, interesting team. I mean, there's one elephant in the room that is not there, who should have been there. And that is, of course, Jonas Vingegaard, who actually lives in Switzerland. But whatever. I think Mathias Skjelmose Jensen could be one of these dark outsiders if that injury or that crash hasn't hampered him too much. He's been very good this year, like really good. And was, of course, second in Flesh Wallonne last year as well, 2 TADEJ POGACARs. So he is our best hope of a medal, I think.
I always struggle to believe when a media release says something like, "Oh, it won't have hampered his."
How do you know that?
But it's.
Could you see it to the future? Does the knee agree with them later on?
It's like, what incentive would the press release have to saying this is going to hamper his World's prep?
Yeah, true.
Other than just putting up a massive smoke screen, just playing, just bluffing. It doesn't really make sense for them to say, oh, he's in terrible condition. Oh, he's gonna drop out. You know, what good is that going to serve? So I always struggle to read too much into those. But anyway, I digress. Who else is there?
We have got the Air Train team. We have got interesting squad, but I don't think they're going to feature. I think they have one of the best national team kids. Binyam Kamai is here. Henrik Mulubran as well. Tespassion, Gapraik Sabia, of the riders that we really know quite well. But this isn't their course. Wait for Kigali next year in Rwanda, I would say. But Great Britain, what's your comments on that? I mean, the 2 Yates brothers, Jake Stewart as well, Tom Pidcock, Oscar Onley, James Knox, Mark Donovan, and Stephen Williams. Who's their card?
I think it's another good team. And you got the obvious workers in there like Donovan and Knox and Stewart. I'd say the Yateses, I'm not really expecting that much from. I don't think this course is too suited to them. Maybe Simon a bit more than Adam. But I would say, it's Pidcock, it's Williams, and I'd say it's honestly Onley as well. Based upon the Tour of Britain, Williams and Onley were pretty closely matched. Williams didn't do very well in the Canadian races, not really sure too why, so that throws up a little bit of a question mark. Onley, I honestly would say Onley or Pidcock, for me, are our 2 best hopes. Pidcock, do you know he hasn't actually done a World Champs road race since Flanders, where he finished in 6th place? He didn't do Wollongong, and he didn't do Glasgow last year, I don't think. So this is Pidcock's first World Champs road race in a few years. And based upon Flanders, I'd say maybe he is a bit of a big time performer. He does kind of pull it out the bag sometimes. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him in the top 10, but I think that Onley could be a big surprise player in the race. I think that Onley could be a bit of could top 10 this race in all reality. And I think that he could be a good card for GB to play.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's quite shocking with Tom Pidcock. Obviously, he was busy winning the Worlds in the mountain bike as well. Yeah, other than that, anyone of note that you can think of in terms of riders? Obviously, there are a few spatters of riders within certain teams. There are certain nations that only have one rider: Greece, Honduras, Algeria, Brazil, Bermuda is even here, Chile. But Canada, Michael Woods, Derek G. Australia, I thought they were quite interesting, maybe before the time trial because Jay Vine had that unfortunate crash. Michael Storer, Ben O'Connor, Michael Matthews, of course, a former medalist, Jai Hindley, and Jack Haig and Chris Hamilton as well. So very solid team, but I just don't know what's going to happen when Pogacar attacks or Remco.
Yeah, Michael Matthews, I wouldn't count out for a top 10. If second group starts playing around too much, he could definitely hang on and just pop a top 5 or something. I really think that he climbs very well for, his climbing has improved quite a bit as the years have gone by. I mean, looking at the US as well, they've got a big team: Jorgensen, McNulty, Paulus, Vermarker, backed up with Riley Sheehan, Quinn Simmons, Sheffield, Sean Quinn. It's a really strong team. I'm not sure who I would designate as the leader. Probably, I'd say Jorgensen with Van Paulus and Vermarker and McNulty as backup, probably. So that's an interesting team for sure. I think they should be competing for a top 10, but I don't know who's like a big killer in their team to really bring the bacon home. They've just got a lot of good talent, but nobody who I think is like an out-and-out favourite. But if things come back together, Jorgensen could, again, be one of those people who solos to victory. I mean, like you say, there's a lot of solo names. There's like Tom Schoins, always good in these long races. You got Lipovitz, who's had a very, very good year. I think that he's certainly, considering that Germany don't really have a big favourite, I think that they're certainly one to be looking at as well. Narvaez isn't here, which is surprising, in all honesty. I really thought that he would be quite suited to this race. Norway, Tobias Hannesson, possibly Abrahamsen if he can hang on and get into an early move. Finn Fisher Black for New Zealand.
No Carapaz either.
No Carapaz. He's pulled out because of a family emergency related thing. I think I saw something about that earlier today, but I think I've covered everybody, which I think might have an influence on the race.
The Vatican rider?
Oh, yes, of course. If you want to, yes, that's a top tip. If you want to get into the World Champs Road Race, move to the Vatican. Maybe you could do that on the cycling day in action. I got Vatican citizenship so I could compete in the World Champs Road Race.
I don't think they're accepting me. Oh, wait, his birthplace is Groningen in the Netherlands.
Is it?
Yeah. So he's actually Dutch.
I'll see. You could get in there.
Next year in Rwanda. Anyways, with that, we might as well come to our favorite part of the show, and that is, of course, the predictions and where is your rainbow jersey going in 2024-5?
I am going to say that Poggy will win. I think Remco will come second. I think that Tom Schoins will come third.
Wait, what? Tom Schoins is third?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Tadej Pogacar and Remco will lock each other out, and that will allow a group up the road. And because he's good friends with Hirschi's going to win the World Championships. Second place, Mathieu van der Poel, and third place, Matthias Skjelmose Jensen.
Wow. That's a rogue podium.
Rogue. It's going to happen.
I like the Hirschi home victory. It's good.
Oh, it would be amazing. But rogue pick as well. Where will Julien Philippe finish?
8th.
15th. But anyways, with that, that's basically it for this preview show of the World Championships 2024. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel here on the Cycling Day in Extra, and of course check out Patrick's own channel, I Do Cycling. There'll be a link down below, and he'll do his Velo Games thing for this as well. But with that, thank you for watching, and we will see you around.